Maybe it's just me being paranoid, but anytime I hear about a bunch of college kids taking a trip to a cabin in the woods, I always assume that they won't be coming back alive. But you know what's worse? When they don't even make it to the cabin in the first place, because they ended up stranded in an abandoned asylum with a family of cannibal hillbillies hunting them down. That's exactly what happens to this girl and her friends when their trip to the mountains goes horribly wrong. So we're here to break down the mistakes made, what you should do, and how to beat the cannibal family in Wrong Turn 4. The story begins back in the 1970s, at a sanitarium somewhere deep in the hills of West Virginia. One cold night, the chief of staff, Dr. Ryan, is showing the new psychiatrist around the building, and they've just arrived at the most dangerous part of the tour. They're headed to Ward C, and the C stands for cannibal. It's where the hospital's most violent patients are kept, but Dr. McQuaid accidentally gets too close to a cell, allowing one of them to grab her hairpin, and that small mistake is about to cost them their lives. That's when he introduces her to their most dangerous patients, the Hilliker brothers, a trio of cannibals with a rare genetic condition that prevents them from feeling any pain. As soon as they're gone, the Hillikers convince their friend to throw over the hairpin, and within a matter of seconds, they're able to pick the lock and escape. Hearing a commotion, the guard enters the ward to see what's going on. But as soon as he turns his back, the cannibals jump him and sink their teeth into his throat. Grabbing his keys, they let themselves out and open the cells as they go, releasing the patients before anyone else can stop them. It doesn't take long before the hospital is in total chaos, and strapping Dr. McQuaid to an electroshock machine, they jolt her full of electricity until her brains are completely fried. As for Dr. Ryan, the boys chain him up with a barbed wire to the holding cells and let the machine tear him apart in all four directions. Okay, well, I guess this place just went from Shutter Island to Hell's Kitchen pretty damn quick. And I want to get one thing out of the way first. The psychiatrist here made a huge mistake by getting too close to the cells. But I feel like the patients should have never been able to reach her in the first place. I mean, we've all seen a high-security prison cell on TV before, right? And what do they always have? A solid steel door with an observation window to see inside. Either that or a double gate system would have completely prevented this from happening. But it also needs to be said that Dr. McQuaid here really should have left her hairpin at the door. Even back in the 70s, hospitals like this one had strict dress code for staff, including no jewelry, hair accessories, or anything else that could be used to pick a lock. And by the way, did they really only have one guard? Like, come on, people. What is this, amateur hour? I know we're not working at Arkham Asylum here, but he should have had backup before he ever opened the door. That way, they'd at least stand a chance of containing the problem if something went wrong. Now, as for the guard's fight, he barely stood a chance because he was swarmed 3-on-1, but as soon as Sawtooth jumped on his back, he should have tucked his chin to protect his windpipe, then reached up and started pulling on his arm to prevent a full-on choke. And then from there, his best move would have been to slam backwards against the walls or floor using his own body weight to knock the attacker off. Which brings us to the doctors, and even though we didn't see them get captured, it's pretty safe to assume that there was some kind of fight before it happened. Now, since the cannibals don't feel pain, we need to focus on devastating hits that can take them down regardless of whether they feel it or not. One option is to target their knees or ankles because these joints are easy to snap with enough force, and leaving them crippled is just as good as taking them out. Otherwise, go straight for the head. A simple knockout should work regardless of their pain tolerance, but you can also go for their eyes to blind them or aim for the windpipe to stop their oxygen flow. The key isn't to win the fight, it's to stun them long enough to get away, giving you a chance to use the other workers as meat shields, haha, while you make your escape. Almost 30 years later, a group of college students meet up in a parking lot on the edge of the forest, planning to spend winter break at their friend Porter's cabin somewhere in the hills. He's already out there getting the place ready, but Daniel here is worried that they might get stuck in a storm. Ignoring him, the others hop onto their snowmobiles and head into the mountains. It doesn't take long before Kenya realizes they're lost, but Kyle here insists that he knows the way. Well, sure enough, they wind up stuck in the middle of a blizzard with absolutely no idea where they are, but that's when one of the girls spots a building off in the distance. Desperate to get out of the cold, they decide to take their chances and check it out, but that was their biggest mistake. The group heads inside and starts looking for any signs of life, but it seems like the place has been abandoned for many years. It's not exactly a 5-star hotel, but it's better than freezing to death outside, right? So they decide to get comfortable and spend the night. Setting up camp near the fireplace, the boys head out in search of something to burn, while Kenya tries calling Porter to explain what happened. But of course, she can't get any signal, and neither can any of her friends, leaving them with no way to contact the outside world. It's not long before the guys come back with some firewood, and Kyle apologizes for getting them all lost, but that's when Vincent decides that they should go explore the rest of the building. My boy Daniel here tries to warn him that it's a bad idea, but his friends still aren't taking things seriously, and they all head off to go check the place out while Bridget and Sarah stay back at the fire. Not too far from their campsite, they come across some lanterns that look recently used, and Jenna starts to worry that there might be someone else around. Well, Vince reassures her that nobody would be out in the storm, but they're about to find out just how wrong that he really is. Alright, so you know it's bad when the cannibals haven't even shown up yet, and these idiots are already fighting for survival. Like, they've already made more mistakes than Three Finger trying to take a spelling test. And it all started when they parked their cars in the damn tow-away zone. That little orange sign might as well have been their gravestone, because if their cars get towed, then there's nothing to show that they were even there in the first place. And since they clearly didn't research the area before going in, I'd also bet that they never checked in with the local rangers before leaving. I mean, that's Wilderness Survival 101, and so far these morons are starting off with a big fat F. Now, once they hit that trail, relying on Kyle's memory to find the cabin was another huge mistake. I mean, no offense to all the Kyles out there, but just based on his name alone, I'm not about to put my life in this guy's hands. And they really should have had a physical map and compass as a backup for this exact reason. Now, personally, I'd rather get my advice from Daniel here, since at least he was smart enough to check the damn weather. Winter in the mountains of West Virginia can turn deadly in like a matter of minutes. So they also should have packed some basic survival gear, including an emergency shelter, first aid, food and water for about 3 days or so, and of course fire starting tools at a bare minimum, just in case they ended up lost. But let's say you've made all the wrong decisions and wind up trapped in a blizzard like they did. Well, your first priority is to find shelter, so taking cover in the hospital was actually a really smart decision. You know, except for the whole hillbilly cannibal thing. But hey, beggars can't be choosers, am I right? Now, finding the hospital might seem like their lucky break, but exploring the place is obviously a terrible idea. I mean, this place has been abandoned for almost 30 years, so you're dealing with collapsing floors, exposed wires, and all kinds of other dangers even without the cannibals hunting you down. So with that being said, the safest thing would be to stay in the lounge until morning, but if they insist on exploring, then they should at least bring their phones to search for any signal in other parts of the building. I'd also look for any useful supplies like firewood and first aid. That way they can at least make this trip productive instead of risking their lives for no reason. The group eventually arrives outside of Dr. Ryan's office and decides to take a look around. The man's desk is full of old patient records, showing all of the strange and uncomfortable cases he's worked on over the years. And curious, Daniel decides to take some folders with him as they head back to the lounge. Meanwhile, the Cannibal brothers finally come home from their hunting trip, dragging the body of the group's friend Porter behind them, but it looks like tonight they'll be having an all-you-can-eat buffet. By now it's getting pretty late, and Vance says that he spotted some beds back in the patient ward that could be worth checking out. They haven't made it far before Kenya notices a shadow darting across the hall, but her friends think that she's full of it, so Vince here goes in to investigate. It seems like they were right, until he suddenly screams and goes silent, and worried, the girls nervously go to check on him, but he eventually pops out from behind a curtain, revealing that it was all just a prank after all. Frustrated, Kenya storms back to the others while her friends have a good laugh, but they're too busy to notice that one of the cannibals really is watching their every move, and it won't be long before they decide to introduce themselves. Back at the fire, Kenya calls Vincent out for the constant pranking, so he volunteers to go turn on the generator as a way to make it up to them. Going off on his own, he makes his way down to the basement and turns on the power, triumphantly returning to the others now that he's done something useful. With nothing to do now but wait out the storm, they start goofing around with the old hospital equipment while polishing off the rest of the doctor's scotch, having no idea that the cannibals are secretly watching them the entire time. Eventually, they find themselves in the auditorium where Kenya discovers an old film reel lying on the floor. Daniel takes it upstairs to the projector booth, never suspecting that one of the cannibals was just there. But when he fires it up, they're all shocked to see what appears on the screen. Strangely enough, it's disturbing footage of one of the brothers being treated with electroshock therapy. And that's when Lauren remembers that she's heard of this place before. The girl explains that she used to hear stories about the insane cannibals that were locked up there, but the others are convinced that it just can't be true. Okay, now this changes everything. I mean, up until this point, they've been treating this all like a big joke, but if there's even the slightest possibility that the stories about this place are true, then it's officially time to start taking things a lot more seriously. I'm not trying to be the fun police here, but the first thing they need to do is put down the bottle and stop drinking. Unless you're using it as a weapon, alcohol is a bad idea in just about any survival situation because it increases your risk of hypothermia, it dehydrates you, and most importantly, it debuffs your reaction time and coordination. This seems like pointing out the obvious, but if you're trapped in an abandoned asylum that may or may not be home to a group of cannibal hillbillies, you want fast reflexes, good balance, and a clear head to make smart decisions. So they need to say no to the booze and start drinking some good old H2O instead. Now, this whole time they've been exploring the place, they've been noticing signs of life that show that it's not really abandoned. I mean, Vince suggests that it could be a janitor or some local hunters, but there's a problem with this idea. I mean, just take a look around. This place is absolutely filthy, and if any sane person was living here, then you'd expect them to at least have some of it cleaned up by now, right? And then we have this generator that's full of fuel and started on the first try. After 30 years of sitting, there's absolutely no f***ing way it'd still be in working condition. Unless, of course, someone's been keeping it full while letting the rest of the place go to shambles. And if that's the case, then I would hate to find out why. So, based on the evidence, I'd already assume there's someone else in the building. And since they can't take their chances outside, it looks like their only option is to hunker down and survive until morning. If it were me, I would suggest setting up camp in the visitors' lounge, barricading the door with some furniture, and arming themselves with any improvised weapons that they could find. And I would also want to set up some noise traps like hanging cans, glass bottles, or tripwires in the surrounding hallways. That way, they'll at least have some kind of early warning sign if anyone tries to sneak up on them. And just to be safe, I'd also keep at least 2 people on watch throughout the night, rotating shifts every few hours, just to make sure that everyone stays fresh, with a pre-established escape plan and rendezvous point just in case something goes wrong. Sometime later in the middle of the night, Vincent says that he can't sleep and decides to go out for another walk instead. Promising Jenna that he won't be long, he takes a flashlight and goes wandering around the building, but nothing could ever prepare him for what's about to happen next. As he reaches the nurse's station, he's surprised to find his buddy Porter sitting with his back to the glass. But when he asks what he's doing there, his friend doesn't really respond. Confused, Vince walks up and taps him on the shoulder only to realize that he's dead. Horrified, he tries to make a run for it, but by then it's already too late, and the moment that he turns around, Sawtooth appears and jams a metal spike straight through his skull. In the morning, Jenna starts to worry after noticing that her boyfriend still hasn't come back. Confused, she goes to check with the others, but nobody has seen any sign of him since last night. That's when Daniel comes back with some more bad news, telling the others that the snowfall is still too heavy for them to leave. Sure that he'll turn up eventually, they give up and decide to have some breakfast instead, but when they get to the lounge, they discover that their bags have all disappeared. Annoyed, they assume that it must be Vince playing a prank and decide to go look for him after all, splitting up into 2 groups to cover more ground. Kenya's group heads down to the basement where they find a storage room full of painful-looking tools from back when the hospital was still open. They eventually find their way down to the high-security cells, but no matter where they look, there's still no sign of Vince or their supplies. Meanwhile, back upstairs, the group comes across the nurse's station and notices a bloodstain on the glass. Worried, they immediately realize that they need to warn their friends, but they have no idea how much worse it's about to get. With no luck finding him, the others decide to split up and each take a hallway on their own. Turning a corner, Jenna finds herself in the kitchen, and that's when she makes the most terrifying discovery of her life. Sawtooth enters from the other side of the room, carrying Porter's body over his shoulder, forcing Jenna to take cover behind a rack of shelves. Terrified, there's nothing that she can do but watch as he drops the body onto a table and starts hacking it to pieces with a meat cleaver. This is when Three Finger comes in and leads his brother away for another job, giving Jenna a chance to escape while they're both distracted. But what the cannibals have in store for them next is even worse. Alright, now this brings a whole new meaning to the words kitchen nightmares, and that's 2 Gordon Ramsay references for the meat shields keeping track back at home. Now, once he saw his missing friend sitting there with his back turned, he immediately assumed that it was just a prank. But when you think about it, why the hell would Porter even come out there in the middle of a storm? And how would he even know that they were there in the first place? That's when his spidey senses should have started tingling, but once Sawtooth came in with the ambush, there was absolutely nothing that he could do. And that's why you always need a meat shield around just in case. Now, as for his friends, they should have been taking his disappearance like a lot more seriously right from the start. I mean, like we said before, this place has all kinds of dangers, even without the cannibal hillbillies. And in a cold, isolated environment like the hospital, every second is critical when it comes to survival. As soon as they noticed that he was gone, everyone should have immediately stopped what they were doing and started searching the building. This would have given them more time to shift into survival mode, which could have easily ended up saving more lives in the long run. Now, splitting up into groups of 4 to cover more ground, it was a pretty good idea, but as soon as Kenya's group decided to split up again, that's where it all fell apart. Now, thanks to Jenna, they know that there are at least 2 armed cannibals in the building, but on the positive side, the cannibals don't really know that they know, which means they still have a tactical advantage. First, they need to regroup in a defensive position like the visitors lounge and barricade up all the doors and windows. Then they gotta arm themselves with any weapons that they can find and set up perimeter traps around the room like we mentioned before. But since they won't be going anywhere soon, it might be better to strike first while they have the element of surprise. Like, so far we've seen that the cannibals like to ambush people while they're alone, so I'd send out a lost member of the group as bait, and then as soon as one of the hillbillies shows up to attack them, everyone else jumps in and finishes them off. If they set an example early, it shows the others that they're not an easy target, and that might be all it takes to make everybody back off. The others have already started to figure out that something isn't right by the time that Jenna comes running into the auditorium, but before she can tell anyone what happened, one of the cannibals throws a mysterious bundle out from behind the stage. It's their friend's jacket, and opening it up, they're horrified to discover Porter's severed head wrapped inside. Ugh. Everyone is so distracted by the horrific sight that Claire accidentally backs up straight into a trap, and before she's even realized what's happening, the cannibals wrap a barbed wire chain around her neck and start lifting her up towards the balcony. Rushing to help, Kyle grabs onto her legs and starts trying to pull her back down, but he ends up only making things even worse. They can't do anything but watch as the chain digs even deeper into her neck until finally it cuts straight through and sends her body tumbling to the ground. The others rush out of the room as Kyle struggles to get back to his feet. He finds them outside trying to start the snowmobiles, but sure enough, the cannibals already got to them, so it looks like they're stuck unless they can find the missing parts. Getting an idea, Lauren notices that her skis are still there and decides to head for town on her own, promising to send back help if she makes it to safety. The others aren't sure if it's a good idea, but the girl's confident that she can make it and disappears into the forest. For now, the others have no choice but to go back in, so they decide to head for the doctor's office and barricade themselves inside. And a few of them immediately start looking around for any weapons, but they can't decide if they should stay indoors or try their luck out in the snow. This is when Daniel finds the brothers' files, explaining that they were once patients there at the hospital, and they're horrified to learn that all 3 of them are violent cannibals. This makes finding weapons even more important, and Kyle mentions checking the old storage area down in the basement. There's just one problem. The cannibals are still out there, and some of them are worried that they'll all be killed before they make it. Determined to try anyway, Kyle guilt trips Daniel into going with him, and Sarah decides that she's going as well, leaving the others to hold down the fort until they get back. Alright, now I'm not trying to be a Debbie Downer here, but I'm starting to think that these idiots couldn't fight their way out of a paper bag. Like, let's take a look at their strategy for the auditorium battle first. Because they made one critical mistake that ended up costing everyone's life, and that was becoming too distracted by their friend's decapitated head. Now, that's easy enough for me to say while I'm sitting here safe at home, but that doesn't change the fact that it's true. Like, panicking was exactly what the hillbillies wanted them to do, and that's when situational awareness becomes even more important. So instead of focusing on the distraction, they needed to circle up and get ready to defend themselves from the actual threat, because running blindly into more traps is only going to get you killed. Now, as Claire started getting pulled up by the chain, Kyle's first reaction was to try pulling her back down, and this is very much a Kyle thing to do. What I mean by that is it's the stupidest thing you could possibly do, because pulling down only helped to kill her faster. Instead, he should have quickly pulled over a chair and started pushing her up, helping to keep her alive for a few more seconds longer. I mean, at the same time, his friends could rush up to the balcony and hit the cannibals head on, forcing them to let go of the chain and drop Claire back to the ground. Now, on the opposite side of things, things, their decision to barricade themselves in the office was actually the smartest thing that they could have done. But then they went and did the dumbest shit ever by deciding to leave again after less than 5 minutes. They're going off in search of weapons, but there was plenty of stuff they could have used right there in the office. So before going anywhere, I would have made sure that everyone was armed and dangerous, even if it was only like a simple weapon like a club made out of a chair leg, or broken glass wrapped in cloth to make a dagger, or even regular old scissors, letter openers, or other sharp objects. Even things like paperweights can make great thrown projectiles for a long-range attack, or even break the front panels off of those filing cabinets to use them as makeshift shields. I'm just saying here. Personally, I would have stayed in the office until there was no other choice, but if they're going to move, then they should be staying as one giant group, because their numbers are their best advantage that they have. And honestly, there's no reason to be afraid of a fight, because with only 3 cannibals out there, every one of them that they're able to take down makes their odds of survival that much better. Kyle's group hasn't made it far before they hear someone cackling from the other end of the hall, turning around to see Three Finger chasing after them with a giant axe. They'll need more than just a fire poker if they're going to take him on, so they start running for the storage area as he comes sprinting their way, locking themselves inside and taking cover behind the piles of old junk. Their only choice is to wait until he's finally moved on before grabbing some weapons and making their move. Kyle leads the way as they start heading back to the office, but Daniel stops to grab an even better axe at the last minute, and as he's racing to catch up with them, he's suddenly grabbed from behind and dragged away before they can even notice. The cannibals take Daniel back into the kitchen and chain him down with barbed wire wrapped around his body. The others haven't even noticed that he's gone until they reach the office, and Kyle immediately wants to go back for him, but Bridget stops him, convinced that it's already too late. That's when they hear their friend screaming for help, but they can't tell if he's just hiding or already being eaten alive. As the screaming gets worse, Kenya decides that they have to try something, but Bridget is still holding out. But while they've been busy debating whether or not to even try, the cannibals have been slicing off entire chunks of Daniel's flesh and eating them right in front of him. But even now that his friends are finally on their way, it looks like they're already too late to save him. As they reach the lower level, they realize that the cannibals could be hiding anywhere, so Kyle decides to search the kitchen while the others go check the cells. He can hear the screaming getting louder the closer that he gets, until finally he turns a corner and sees the cannibals cutting off a giant strip of his friend's leg. It's basically the most horrifying thing that he's ever witnessed, and panicking, he reluctantly turns back to get to the others, leaving Daniel behind without trying to stop them. By now, it's safe to say that saving his life is not an option. Alright, I think it's safe to say that my boy Daniel here deserved a better group of friends. Because if they were all as safety focused as he was, then he'd be back home chilling right now with a blanket and a nice cup of hot chocolate. But with that being said, he did make one incredibly dumb mistake here, and now it looks like he just paid the price. Now obviously he should have never stayed back without telling the others to wait up. I mean, they literally just avoided an attack from Three Finger, so they should have been expecting more trouble like at any second. But hanging back without warning, the others instantly made him the perfect target, so once they started moving, they should have stayed in a tight group to make sure that they didn't leave anyone behind. Now because he didn't tell anyone where he was stopping, there was really no one to back him up once Sawtooth appeared. Now the thing is, he actually had a hatchet in his right hand, and that could have been a total game changer if he'd used it correctly. The best place to aim would have been for the head or the side of the neck, where you might sever a major artery or cause massive brain trauma that could kill him in a matter of seconds. Otherwise, the attack to the shoulder or collarbone could disable his arm, right? Breaking his grip and allowing Daniel to escape. And strikes to the legs near his knees or tendons are also a pretty viable option. Damaging his mobility is better than nothing. I mean, there was still a slight possibility of saving him once the butchering first started, but by the time that these idiots decided to act, it was already too late, so they basically ended up risking their lives, all for nothing. Knowing that the cannibals are all clustered together in a single location might give them a chance to turn the tables. I mean, if they're feeling brave, I would sneak around to the kitchen's exits and block them off with some furniture or a chain, trapping the cannibals inside and allowing them to take control of the situation. Yeah, those cannibals. Traumatized, Kyle goes racing back to the others to tell them some bad news, but Kenya's still determined to fight these creeps before they kill anybody else. Coming up with a plan, she tells Jenna to take her lantern and go wait near the hallway leading into Ward C, while she and the others use their weapons to storm the kitchen. In the kitchen, One Eye starts choking on one of Daniel's fingers. His brothers go over to help him out, but while they're distracted, Kyle sneaks up and whacks Sawtooth with a fire extinguisher as the girls come charging in behind him, leading the cannibals straight into Jenna's trap. As soon as she sees them coming, Jenna smashes the lamp on the ground, creating a wall of fire that forces them down towards the cells. Keeping up the pressure, the others chase them all the way back until there's nowhere left for them to run, trapping them back in their original cell from 30 years before. Discussing their options, Kyle thinks that they should just kill them now while they have the chance, but just when he's about to light them up, Kania manages to talk him out of it, convincing him to spare their lives instead. Frustrated, the others ask what she wants to do from there, but Kenia suggests that they should check the building for parts from their snowmobiles. So they decide to split up and search the hospital one room at a time, leaving Kyle behind to stand guard over the prisoners while they're gone. Hours go by with no sign of the parts, and frustrated, the girls decide that they need some rest. Kyle's getting sleepy as well, but the moment that he closes his eyes, Three Finger retrieves the old hairpin from the toilet routine and uses it to open the cell, allowing Sawtooth to knock him out before he even knows what's coming. Sometime later, Kenya decides to go check on Kyle down in the basement, with Sarah locking the door behind her as soon as she's gone. When she gets to the cell block, she's horrified to discover that the cage is open and there's no sign of Kyle or the cannibals anywhere in sight. Terrified, she immediately sprints back to warn the others, who agree to stay put in the office and make their escape first thing in the morning. Just then, they hear the sound of footsteps in the hallway, and when Kenya shines her flashlight through the hole in the door, they're horrified to see a bloodshot eyeball staring back at them from the other side. They're convinced that it's one of the cannibals, but strangely, he's not attacking, and seeing their chance, the girls decide to take him down while they have him outnumbered. Hearing this, the cannibal gets up and tries to run away, but the girls chase him down and start stabbing him in the back with their knives. Flipping him over, Kenya takes off his mask only to realize that they've just killed their good buddy Kyle, and that makes 8 down with only 5 more to go. Alright, well, it looks like that just happened. I mean, holy people, you're getting outsmarted by a group of guys who've probably never even seen a color TV, and they just played you like a damn banjo into committing one of the most horrifying acts of friendly fire that I've ever seen. Now, getting picked off by a psychotic cannibal is one thing, but letting them trick you into doing it for them is just next level stupidity. And when that happens, I think you know exactly what I'm about to say. Guess what, idiots? It looks like all of you just f***ed up. Now, I'd be leaving a major part of the story out if I didn't take a second to roast Kyle first, because every time something started to go wrong, it seems like he was always in the middle of it. I mean, first off, you started this whole mess by giving everyone the wrong directions. So it wouldn't be far from the truth to say that this whole thing was like completely your fault. Like, you know it's bad when your only hope of survival is spending the night at the Cannibal Hotel. So next time, maybe try checking a map or something before your entire friend group ends up getting made into human stew. But what's crazy is that you morons actually managed to win the fight and trap these creeps inside the cage, only to then turn around and leave one guy guarding them as if they already hadn't escaped from this exact situation like 30 damn years ago. That's about as dumb as you could possibly get. And after losing 3 of your friends just to get this far, you'd think that you'd all be smart enough to just finish them off while you had the chance. Now, I still don't know who's the bigger idiot, Kenya for showing mercy to a bunch of literal cannibals, or Kyle for falling asleep on the job. But one thing I can say for sure is that every single one of you guys just f***ed up. Horrified by what they've just done, the girls realize that Kyle couldn't speak because the cannibals cut out his tongue, but they can still hear one of the brothers laughing at them from the shadows, so they decide to all run back towards the doctor's office. Suddenly, the cannibals jump up from around the corner and cut them off, forcing the girls to run for the front door, but when they get there, they realize that it's already been chained shut, leaving them no choice but to try their luck somewhere else. They make it all the way up to the attic without running into the brothers, only to realize that they've just stumbled right into their evil lair. They need to get out of there before the cannibals come back, but before leaving, they grab some jackets from their previous victims to help keep them warm. Eventually, they reach a place where they can barricade the hallway with a plank of wood and start looking around for a window where they can sneak out. Most of them are still caged up, but Sarah eventually finds one that looks rusted enough to pull loose. Only as they're struggling to make an opening, the cannibals track them down and start forcing their way through the door. Racing against time, Sarah uses her weapon to break the glass and starts digging a tunnel through the snow, but it looks like the cannibals are about to break through at any second. Finally, she reaches the end of the tunnel and manages to get outside, telling the others that it's safe to follow her through. Bridget goes first, followed by Kenya, but before Jenna is able to get inside, the cannibals manage to break through. She's almost made it to the other end when the tunnel starts caving in and Kenya immediately dives back in to save her. But as soon as Jenna climbs back through the window, Sawtooth comes charging in and impales her straight through the back with an enormous drill. Horrified, Kenya shouts for the others to pull her back, knowing that there's nothing she can do to save her friend. With nowhere to go but into the forest, the three of them start running away from the building as fast as they can, but it's not long before the cannibals get to the snowmobile and start chasing after them. There's no chance of outrunning them in the deep snow, and within seconds they're completely surrounded as the cannibals start doing donuts to circle them in. Alright, well, it looks like these girls just got front row tickets to Cannibals on Ice. Now, I know it's hard to think straight when you're literally fighting for your life, but they missed two big opportunities at the hospital that could have changed the game. First off, the cannibals' evil lair was full of sledgehammers, saws, and other tools that they could have used for weapons, and I'm willing to bet the parts for their snowmobiles were probably there too. So instead of immediately rushing out, they should have had two girls stand guard while the others did a thorough sweep of the room, because if they somehow managed to find those parts, then this entire situation could have been avoided. Now, after escaping, they knew that the cannibals might still come after them, so instead of running away into the open wilderness, they could have set up an ambush right outside the front door. Like, with any luck, the creeps wouldn't be expecting it, and as soon as they let their guard down, the girls could just jump them and take the snowmobiles for themselves. But once they were being chased, there was like no chance of them outrunning them on foot, so instead of running straight through an open field, they should have turned into the tree line and used the dense woods for cover, forcing the creeps to get off their snowmobiles if they wanted to follow. Now that they've been circled in, their options are pretty limited, but if they've ever seen the movie Gladiator, then they'll know exactly what to do. Their only hope is to form a tight circle using Sarah's fire poker and any branches they find to knock a cannibal off his sled if he gets too close. With any luck, they might be able to take one down, and if they can capture a sled, then they'll be home free. After tormenting them for a minute, the killers randomly disappear, giving the girls another chance to run for it, but before they can get very far, Sarah decides that she wants to go back for her weapon. Splitting up, she runs back to the attack site and starts digging around in the snow, but as soon as she's gone, the others hear the snowmobiles coming back. Kenya warns Bridget to get down, but the girl takes off running instead, and within seconds, one of the cannibals grabs her by the shoulder and starts dragging her away. Pulling out a knife, she stabs Sawtooth in the arm until he finally lets go, and while he's distracted, he ends up crashing straight into a tree branch and knocking himself out cold. That's when Sarah hears her girlfriend scream from somewhere in the distance, but before she can reach her, One Eye catches the girl underneath the tread of his snowmobile and starts revving the engine, tearing her apart like a wood chipper as he bounces up and down with delight. There's absolutely nothing that Sarah can do by the time that she gets there, and defeated, she goes back to find Kenya before the cannibals get to her first. In the morning, Lauren's body sits frozen to death just a few feet from the highway. Injured, Kenya makes it to the middle of the open field and starts calling out for her friends, but that's when she hears one of the cannibals coming her way. Terrified, she runs over to a big pile of snow when suddenly Sarah comes out and hits One Eye with a tree branch, revealing that this was their plan all along. They're just about to reach the road when suddenly Kenya shouts, "Oh no!" as she notices something in the path ahead of them, but it's too late, and they're both instantly decapitated by a barbed wire fence. In the end, that makes 13 victims down with no survivors. And it looks like everyone learned a pretty valuable lesson here. If you're going snowmobiling through the mountains of West Virginia, it might help to invest in a map first. Wrong turn 4. Yeah, man. You know we had to do this one. Where are all my wrong turn fans at? Part 4. It's been in the can for a minute, but we had to bust it out. Who's still talking about this movie in 2025? The boy, the kid. Yeah. You should be letting me know what I missed down in the comments below. Leave a like and subscribe. Check out that How to Beat playlist for more videos just like this one. I'm the guy. We'll see you in the next video and have a damn good day.